We're going to try this all over again because I mean, if there's no bloopers, then it just doesn't make sense, right? So here we go. What are glorified multiple offers or bidding wars in this market? Are buyers really flocking back to this market like the media says, or some other realtors start posting on their social media? We're going to talk about what really is happening at ground level. We're going to get really nitty gritty with the numbers. But before we do that, my name is Rene and I run a real estate team in the Oakville, Burlington region. Before we get into the stats, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and also comment if you'd like to in the description. We'd love to hear your feedback and talk about anything and everything real estate. So first thing I want to go over is what's up with these glorified multiple offer situations. You may have heard in the media recently that there's a few homes that may be getting 20, 30, 40, 50 offers. Honestly, that's not really what's happening in terms of the majority of the market. Those are one-offs, and I want people to understand the biggest difference with when you're hearing about a bidding war or multiple offer situation, at least in the Oakville Burlington market. These homes are priced drastically below market value, and what realtors are doing is they're going really, really low because they just want to get tons of activity, and I get it. But the thing is, when you look at what they're selling at versus what were they listed, they probably would have got the same price if they just priced it fair. And instead of wasting 20, 30, 40, 50 people's time in terms of getting all these offers and going through them and getting people in the homes, I mean, you could have just priced it fair and you'd get fair market value. We're in this kind of a market where you are going to get fair market value. So I just don't want a lot of people thinking that we're in a bidding war situation. We are not there, and I'm going to talk about all the numbers in terms of where we really are in this market. Now, the other thing I want to really talk about is you may see some articles out there and some headlines, or you may see on other people's social media platform that buyers are coming in and they're storming into this market. Well, it's not really the fact. Where the market is at is actually, it's fair, but we're not seeing tons of buyers come back. People are just waiting it out. So some of these headlines embellish it. And here at Team Rene, when we talk about the stats, we tell you what is happening in the Burlington and the Oakville market at ground level. And we hope that these numbers can help you understand what really is happening in this market. Let's talk about Oakville right now in terms of the detached market. So January, when we look at January and what an average detached home in Oakville went for, it seems really high, and we'll talk about this, but it's up at around $1,960,000 for a detached in Oakville. Now, the thing here, when we look at what happened in January, you got to understand, like, it's just 1 month. We're comparing Jan 2024 to Jan 2023. So in Jan 2024, the average home is around $1,960,000 for Oakville. A townhouse is around $1,031,000, and a condo is around $620,000. Now for Burlington, I know this number seems low, but I'll explain in a second why. The average detached in Burlington is around $1.2 million. An average townhouse is around $800,000, and an average condo is around $580,000. Now let me go back to Burlington. So when we're looking at what happened in this January, it is accurate. That is what we're seeing in terms of an average detached home in Burlington. But you got to keep in mind, that's just 1 month. If we averaged out, if we looked at the last 12 months of activity for Burlington, the detached house would actually be around closer to 1.5 million. So you always got to look at numbers in a certain way. Now, in terms of new listings, a lot of people are always asking us, are we seeing a lot of activity? We're seeing fair activity, but if we compare it to last year, Oakville is actually down just 0.6%, so pretty much even, and Burlington is down around 3%. Now we're talking about January to January. So sellers they're hesitant, and I feel that they're being very cautious. So we're not seeing a ton of new listings, but we'll talk about inventory right now. And inventory's up. So if we look at Oakville, it's actually up 6.7% versus last January, and Burlington is up 6%. So more inventory, which is great for buyers. Now, got to keep this in mind though. The reason why there is more inventory is because homes are taking longer to sell. That is a fact, and I'll talk about that in a minute as well. A lot of sellers are also still on the fence. We're starting to see a bit more activity, but there's a bunch that are on the fence. So in terms of sales, this is a great little start to January, but I wouldn't get too excited. So at Oakville, we noticed here that sales are up 15% versus last January. And in Burlington, it's up around 16%. So a little bit more activity. The one thing I do want to highlight here is if we compare 2023 versus 2022 and look at the whole amount of data, Oakville was actually down 34%. And Burlington was down 27%. This is taking a look at literally all of 2023 versus 2022. So the fact that we're up a little bit right now, it's a good indication that we are seeing a little bit more activity. But we gotta wait and see how many months of this we can actually track. In terms of days on market, so this is kind of cool and interesting, and I'll go into detail a bit in just a second. But these numbers don't look great. So Oakville days on market is around 45 days, which is actually up about 2.5% versus last January. And if we look at Burlington, days on market is 42 days. So this is the amount of days it's taken on average to sell a home in these cities. Burlington is up 40%. That's a huge increase in terms of how long a home takes to sell. Now, very interesting fact here. So I went back since 2011 and I looked at roughly what is an average amount of days for a home to sell in Oakville, Burlington, and it's around 30 days. I've always told clients that in a normal market, 20 to 30 days is considered great. Definitely verified this, and since 2011, 30 days is a fair average for a home to sell. If we look at months of inventory, this kind of ties into inventory, what we were talking about earlier. So right now, we've got in Oakville about 2 months of inventory, which is up 17% versus last January. And in Burlington, pretty much the same, 2%, but it's up 11%. Months of inventory is a really interesting way to look at the market. And if we go back to 2021, just to put it in perspective how this is not a fun fact. This is a sad fact. This is crazy. In 2021, when we were in that hype of the market and inventory was at an all-time low, we had 0.20 months of inventory, and that is obviously why the market went bananas. No inventory equals bidding wars equals crazy prices. But right now, the fact that we're at about 2 months of inventory, we're still actually below where we should be. But around that 2.5, 3 months of inventory is very healthy. Now, I love talking about the last 3 years. So the last 3 years, if you've owned a home in the last 3 years in Oakville, Burlington, this is always encouraging. If you've owned a detached home in Oakville, your home has appreciated about 7%. A townhouse has appreciated about 8%, and a condo has appreciated about 6%. And I'll get into whether or not that's good or bad in just a second. Burlington, detached has appreciated around 7% per year. A townhouse has appreciated 8%, and a condo has appreciated 7%. So anywhere from 5 to 7% historically is actually fair. I've said this in my previous videos, and I always like to highlight that, especially over the last year and a half, when we were seeing gains of like 20, 30%. I said it in my videos. I said, that is not normal, total anomaly. And I just want to reiterate that if we look at the data over the last 15 to 20 years, 5 to 7% per year is great appreciation. In a nutshell, that's what's been happening in this market. January is definitely off to an interesting start with the rates not going up. That's a very, very positive thing for the confidence out there. I do feel that once the rate announcements happen later in the year and we get that first drop, we are going to see these numbers just keep changing drastically. My honest advice right now, if you're a buyer and you can afford to get into the market and you see a home that makes sense, you definitely got to jump on it. There's no competition in majority of the pockets. Prices are fair. And I do feel that if you keep waiting and waiting for either prices to drop or the interest rates to drop, I feel it's going to be a really weird storm that we might see in terms of, I don't want to say bidding wars, but I just feel that everything could change in the next 3 to 6 months. And we do feel by the spring or summer, we'll start to see some rates potentially drop. So you got to be ready. And if you're a seller and you're really trying to time this market, my number one piece of advice is talk to your real estate agent and really ask those questions about when should you list and most of the time, the best time to list is when there's no inventory in your pocket and you've got a solid plan. If you're a first-time home buyer, I feel like this is a great time to get in. Yes, the rates are really tricky, but if you can purchase within your means, I feel that getting in now will be very nice, because my one prediction that I had at the end of last year, and I still hold to it, I feel that we're going to be saying at the end of this year that the market would have appreciated 2 to 4%. So as an investment, I think that's going to be fair. Hopefully it's a little higher than that, but those are my tips. I can't wait to be talking about how February performs in the next month. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this video helps, and please don't forget to give us a big thumbs up. Also, if you enjoyed the video and you like this content, don't forget to subscribe. And if there's anything in the video that I did miss or you'd like to talk about, click the link in the description. I'd love to book a one-to-one and talk about how we can help you in the Oakville Burlington region. Thanks so much for watching. We live here, and so should you.